You're watching us on Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance coming to you from Orange County. We are joined by the mayor of Fullerton. His name is Bruce Whitaker. And I want to speak with you, sir, to start about the drought. Now, purportedly, California is not in drought anymore. But I think it's fair to say that Northern California got a lot more water than Southern California. And one could argue that Southern California, including Orange County, is still in some form of drought. Would you agree with that, sir?
I do agree. That's pretty well phrased. The governor has removed restrictions that were drought related, but the drought really is a year-to-year situation. Right. And so we don't know really whether we've exited drought conditions.
And I would mention you're on the board of the Orange County Water District, so you're on top of these issues.
Right, keeping the aquifer recharged and as full as possible is one of the things that we're interested in.
And so let's talk about that groundwater aquifer, the groundwater basin.
Sure.
How was this water year? Did we see a lot of water, I guess, run off and percolate into the groundwater?
Well, the overdraft on the basin was at 377,000 acre feet.
Is that big? Is that a lot?
It is a fair amount. It's getting down to a danger level, and after 5 years of drought, that would be somewhat expected.
Okay.
The recovery this year so far, we're at about 319,000 acre feet overdraft.
Okay, so better.
We've had some recovery. It would be helpful if we have another heavy rainy year.
Right.
Then the base flows and other local sources would be very helpful to recharge it.
Let's talk about Fullerton specifically. Fullerton, I'm not sure, what was its target in terms of conservation? It went from 4 to 36.
Right, we were at 24, 25% was our goal.
And how'd you do?
Mostly we hit it.
Oh, good.
Right.
So the question then becomes, these targets are no longer required. Are your residents still being water wise?
I think they are. There was a lot of work on xeriscaping and changing out landscape. We're going to have long-term effects. There are new state regulations that are just starting to take hold as far as water restriction. So I believe what we're doing is flattening out the demand on water. We're lucky in Orange County over the last 20 years, even with population growth, that we're using about the same amount of water that we did 2 decades ago.
It is remarkable. We see that in LA County as well, that Californians, look, we've become water wise, and hopefully one would realize that, like you said, the drought is a year-to-year event, and so we need to not celebrate and start, watering our lawn 7 days a week.
Well, and that's what the governor is trying to encourage now is we'd be aiming at about a 20% still reduction ongoing going forward. Now that's subject to some changes depending on conditions.
Right. Let's talk about another aspect of funding in our state. We know that we've been funding water projects through Proposition 1, for example. I want to talk about funding road repairs. As you know, California has had a gas tax in place, but it hasn't been increased since the 90s, essentially. Right. And so for a few years, the state has been grappling with how to deal with that deficit. No increase, inflation continues, we have cars that are more fuel efficient. And so this year, the legislature was able to muster a 2/3 vote to pass a gas tax. 2/3 is a high bar, but they were able to do it. What do you make of the program to increase the gas tax and fund road repairs?
Well, I'm in favor of upgrading our infrastructure, but I've always advocated use of existing monies in the budgets. In effect, prioritizing infrastructure above other uses for the most part.
There's no question that some monies that were supposed to go to transportation did not. But as I understand it, we still had a dramatic need. And so, what do I know? I don't know if the gas tax was too much, too little, whatever it is.
Well, let me throw a couple things back at the assertions that it hasn't been increased. Certainly the number of cars has increased in our state, and the driving activity has increased. So even though you had a flat 18-cent per gallon state excise tax on gasoline, it grew naturally with that usage. So we've had heavier usage over those years, creating more revenue for still arguably the same amount of roads because the state stopped adding new freeways and adding new roads.
But we had cars that were more fuel efficient.
More
And
recently,
so-
yes, with electric.
with
certainly.
electric
Right.
and with the hybrids. Now, the hybrids at least pay some gas tax. The electrics paid zero. As part of the plan, that's going to change. But let's dig deeper, though, because I know that you are concerned about how the gas tax was passed. For example, we mentioned Prop 1, the voters accepted Prop 1. Prop 30, the voters accepted Prop 30, the extension of the sales tax, and then the original sales tax that passed in 2012. You believe that this should have gone to the voters? Is that accurate?
Absolutely. We've had a long-standing established situation in the state of California where voters have repeatedly asserted that they want to have the right of approval or disapproval over tax increases.
Even though when the voters passed Prop 13, Prop 13 said, you don't have to go to the voters if you get 2/3.
If you get
And they
2/3.
did get 2/3, including one Republican.
Well, the majority party now has a supermajority.
They do.
But Governor Brown, when he ran for governor, said that he wasn't going to push taxes without voter approval. That was his pledge.
Was it with regard, and I don't know the answer to this, I honestly don't. Was it with regard to sales tax or all
Any
taxes?
tax.
I don't remember. Okay.
Any tax. And so the fact that the majority has a supermajority right now, they still could have done this the right way. They could have put it before voters, because if it is a pressing need and a priority, and if voters do think that throwing more money at this, even though the existing monies may not have been used the way that we would like, if they think that's a good idea, let the voters speak.
So there are folks that are looking to have the voters speak.
Right.
As I guess what they'd have to do is they have to vote to repeal SB 1. And so if you voted no on repeal, that means you're in favor of SB 1. We don't know if that's going to go to the ballot. Is that fair?
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, that's that would be very difficult to
Right.
get that.
That being said, there is one member that's being targeted. I guess 52 voted in favor of it, including one Republican. But one specific Democrat's being targeted.
It was 27 to 11 in the Senate.
You're right. I misspoke. I was thinking of the Assembly. Thank you for that correction. Yeah, 26, because there's only 40 members.
Right.
And that member is Josh Newman, who happens to represent Fullerton.
Right.
What do you think of targeting one member for voting for that 2/3 vote?
Well, I tend to be a fan of putting an elected up for a thumbs up or thumbs down before the electorate, particularly when they're fairly new. Senator Newman ran on the notion that he was going to take California back for us, for the voters, and that he was a different kind of Democrat when he ran in the race. So he was promising a certain amount of fiscal accountability.
Right.
And I think in this district, which is a fairly balanced district, that there are many people who supported him who may not feel kindly about this
But
action.
even though, I mean, recalls were intended more for corrupt officials. I mean,
No, absolutely not.
you don't
actually.
see it that way?
No, in fact, that's where criminal prosecution comes in for those types of problems. A recall, back the progressives passed the reforms, recall initiative and referendum. It was involving the railroad monopoly back when. But a recall doesn't need to have any reason at all.
It's true.
Right.
That is a true statement. That is true.
And so it's a question of whether you're it's almost like a parliamentary form
Right.
of government where you vote
Let me
confidence or not.
ask you, if the recall qualifies,
Right.
would you be interested in being on the ballot as a potential replacement?
I would give very strong consideration to that as something because to me as a voter, as a constituent, I wouldn't want to have the same experience we had with Governor Schwarzenegger, who when he replaced Gray Davis, a few years in, he rolled and he basically recreated the Gray Davis administration.
His name is Bruce Whitaker. He's mayor of Fullerton. I'm Brad Pomerance, it's Local Edition.